So we're going to do our timeline now of all of these events through the 1930s and the international responses to them. We start with 1929 because of, let's call it the Great Depression. The Great Depression. All right, let's do that. The Great Depression, 1929, right? Starts in the United States, spreads to any country that the United States does business with, which is like all of the great powers, right? Fast forward a couple years, 1929, we got a 1930, we got a 1931, right? 1931 is important because of 1931. Not just Europe. Manchurian crisis, very good. I'm having some conversations with students retesting, and I want us all to recognize that none of this can happen or will happen until we have the economic crisis of the Great Depression. Countries focused more inward, countries less concerned about dealing with other foreign policy issues that are outside of their borders, and countries like Japan or Italy or Germany wanting to be self-sufficient in the midst of the Great Depression. Manchurian crisis in 1931, all right? In 1933, let me get a different color here. In 1933, let's go right here. In 1933, Hitler is the Chancellor of Germany. In 1933, Hitler becomes the Chancellor of Germany. And we care about that in 1933 because that is the year of that Geneva Disarmament Conference. Okay, I'll just do Geneva Disarmament Conference in 1933. And that is, of course, where Adolf Hitler goes to Geneva and tells the other nations of the world, you guys should come down to our level. Hitler knows that France will never do that. France refuses. Hitler leaves the conference. Hitler leaves the League of Nations. And Hitler will begin now to accelerate German rearmament. All right? Hitler will accelerate German rearmament. Now, what does the rest of the world think about Germany rearming? First and foremost, right next door to Germany is France. France doesn't like it. France feels threatened by Germany more than anyone else. Why? They share a border. Why else? They've already been attacked twice, back in the Franco-Prussian War and then in 1914 with World War I. France is threatened by this, all right? So France will be reaching out to friends that might help them if if Germany truly becomes a threat. And they look to the Soviet Union. France and the Soviet Union will sign what is called the Franco-Soviet Treaty of Mutual Assistance. Boy, that's a mouthful. The Franco-Soviet Treaty of Mutual Assistance. Now, the Franco-Soviet Treaty of Mutual Assistance is not any kind of defensive alignment, or it doesn't force any country to go to war with each other, but it's just like an olive branch, kind of like the original Entente between France and Russia before World War I. This makes Britain, though, a little... Hey, Britain, France, what are you doing? They're communists over there, and you're working with them. But this shows the level of fear that France is going to have from Germany. In Britain, what do they think about this German rearmament? They maybe don't love it, but they don't mind it so much. Britain does deals with France, or with Germany. Germany does deals with Britain. They're economic trading partners. Many in Britain, as we've already mentioned, thought the Treaty of Versailles went too far. But when it comes to the Navy that Germany starts to rebuild, this perks up Britain's ears. Germany starts rebuilding a navy in violation of the Treaty of Versailles. Treaty of Versailles said Britain's got to have a very small navy with no submarines. Germany wants to start rebuilding. Britain's got the most powerful navy on the planet, and they are threatened by a possible growing German navy. So Britain's got an idea. And in 1935... Britain and Germany will sign the Anglo-German Naval Agreement. The Anglo-German Naval Agreement. rather than getting into a naval arms race with Germany, which happened before World War I, and we know how that ended, Germany and Britain will sign an agreement called the Anglo-German Naval Agreement that will allow Germany, in violation of the Treaty of Versailles, to grow their navy up to a 35% size of the British Navy. They can be about 1/3 of the size of the British Navy. Britain's letting them do this. The idea in Britain is we are better to sign an agreement with them and let them grow to 1/3 of our size than to not have an agreement with them and have them continue to grow even beyond that and then start a naval arms race with us. And why do we not want a naval arms race in 1935? We don't have the money to have a naval arms race in 1935 because of the Depression. So we're going to let Germany build a little navy, which will, hopefully, if Germany follows these agreements, they won't, which will prevent them from building a much larger navy. Also, as a part of the Anglo-German Naval Agreement, is the fact that the Germans can build an equal number of submarines to the British. So the overall Navy can only be 35% as big, but they can have the same number of submarines. Because what possible harm could submarines cause Britain in the future? Oh boy. But remember, we have the hindsight is 20/20 factor on our side, right? In 1936, we have the Abyssinian crisis. In 1936, we have the Abyssinian crisis. The international response to Abyssinia is one we've already talked about. All right? First, it's going to largely break down what was called that Stresa front between Britain, France, and Italy. And the Stresa front was already weak. This was that agreement between these three nations to try to maintain the status quo of Europe and the Treaty of Versailles. Well, the Stresa front by 1936 was already weakened because Britain signing the Anglo-German Declaration and France is making deals with the Soviet Union. So the Stresa front wasn't really much of a front anyway. But the Abyssinian crisis is really going to break that down completely. What does the League of Nations do in the face of the Abyssinian crisis? Not much. They condemn Italian actions. Shouldn't do that, Italy. Get out. And they will put economic sanctions on Italy. Economic punishments. All right? We're not going to ship things to you. We'll have an embargo of your shipments. But countries, despite these sanctions, will violate them. Even Britain will continue to sell resources that can be used for Italy's military expeditions. And the United States, we're not members of the League of Nations, right? We will actually grow our shipments to Italy during the Abyssinian crisis. We will ship even more, which essentially neutralizes the effect of the League of Nations sanctions. At the same time this is happening in Africa, Adolf Hitler is remilitarizing the Rhineland. He takes his new army and he moves it into the Rhineland region of Germany. As I've already said the other day, this is Germany moving German soldiers to another part of Germany. This was Hitler rolling the dice because his general said, don't do it because we're not strong enough yet. If France attacks us, we'll be annihilated. Hitler rolled the dice, and he was right that France won't do anything, that Britain won't do anything. So the Rhineland is remilitarized with no reaction, no opposition from Britain and France. In 1937 and 38, we have the Spanish Civil War. 1937 and 1938, we have the Spanish Civil War. Now, we've already dealt with the international response to this. What does Italy do in the Spanish Civil War? They aid the nationalists of Francisco Franco. What does Germany do in the Spanish Civil War? They aid the nationalists of Francisco Franco. The Soviet Union, they will aid the group called the Republicans, the government faction, in the Spanish Civil War. Britain and France don't want to tangle with this. They don't want to get involved in a wider war because of this. They don't want to get involved into a wider war. So they agree to not intervene into the Spanish Civil War. And in fact, they get 14 other nations along with Britain and France to not intervene in the Spanish Civil War. Or to sign this non-intervention declaration at least. But guess who else has signed the non-declaration intervention? Or non-intervention declaration? Germany signed it. Italy signed it. The Soviets signed it. It doesn't mean anything, right? So there is going to be international involvement in the Spanish Civil War, but not from Britain and France. All right? Not from Britain and France. In 1938, we have the Anschluss. That's that political union between Germany and Austria. In 1938, we have the Anschluss. The reaction of the international community? Britain and France aren't happy about it. But, does Austria fight? No. And if Austria is not going to fight over it, Britain and France aren't going to fight over it. You're going to go to war because Germany moved its troops into a country that doesn't seem to mind having them there? I don't think it's something that the British voters or the French voters are going to support, and they don't. And then Italy, keep in mind, Italy in 1938, they're cool with the Anschluss. Now they're in tight with Germany after the Spanish Civil War. So they allow the Anschluss to take place. In late 1938, we have the Munich Pact regarding Czechoslovakia. Remember, Adolf Hitler wanted the Sudetenland region. This is in the late summer of 1938. Britain and France don't want to give it to him. But they also don't want war. So ultimately, a meeting is held in Munich, Germany, called the Munich Conference, organized by Benito Mussolini himself. And out of that is agreed by those four powers, Britain and France and Italy and Germany, that Germany will get the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia. And that the rest of Czechoslovakia is to be protected by the four. Yes, ma'am?
Just a random article that I was reading that but now no one's been caught in the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
I guess the Czech Republic actually voted, and they had they're slowly changing it so that because we don't call France the Republic of France.
Yeah, yeah.
So they renamed their colloquial speak to Czechia.
Czechia?
Yeah, so Czech but they spelled it with an IA. So they're still doing it. So the U.S. signed things, but any official document that matches that mentions the Czech Republic is actually now called Czechia.
Really?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to say you better check yourself before you wreck yourself?
I'm sure because Czechs don't speak English.
Cool. So we can keep saying that.
I think we can
Awesome. That's really all that I'm worried about here. Yes, ma'am. Oh, just enjoying that drink. Yes, yes. Britain, France, Italy, and Germany. Who is noticeably absent? Czechoslovakia, not there. Soviet Union, not invited. All right. In the next year, in 1939, let me move my 1939 over. 1939, all of Czech. C-Z-E-C-H. All of Czechoslovakia is taken over by Adolf Hitler in Germany in violation of the Munich Pact. The response to this from the international community is one of anger and condemnation. But that's it. It does teach Neville Chamberlain, though, that this doesn't work. This is done. We shouldn't have trusted them all along. Guys, the invasion of the rest of Czechoslovakia is important because when Hitler took Austria in the Anschluss, that's Greater Germany. German-speaking people being brought into Germany. When he takes the Sudetenland, that's creating Greater Germany. German-speaking people being brought into Germany. When he takes the rest of Czechoslovakia, that's his first move towards Lebensraum. Taking land that has no ethnic connection to Germans. All right? Now it's getting serious. And if he can take a little bit of Czechoslovakia, the writing is on the wall to take anything else that he wants. Yes?
Would you mind spelling Lebensraum again?
Leben, L-E-B-E-N, Laban, S, so Laban's, Raum, R-A-U-M, Laban's Raum, the living space. Another international reaction to Hitler's taking of Czechoslovakia is Benito Mussolini saying, whoa, it's starting to get crazy up there. We should start moving on our own or we're going to get overlooked here. We will be dominated by Germany in the future. So Benito Mussolini will move his army in to take Albania. So in 1939, Albania. Now in Northern Europe, or Central Europe I should say, Poland is just to the north of Czechoslovakia. In Southern Europe, in the Balkans, Greece is just to the south of Albania. After the invasion of all of Czechoslovakia and after the taking of Albania, Great Britain will guarantee the security of Poland in the north and Greece in the south. So this is another aspect of the international response. Hitler, you've gone far enough. Chamberlain, the appeaser of all appeasers, is no longer an appeaser. Now what does he know? That Hitler's agreements can't be relied upon. That Mussolini's agreements can't be relied upon. The guarantee is given to Greece. The guarantee is given to Poland. On September 1st, 1939, that is a date you should know. 9/1/39. German armies will invade Poland and start bombing the Polish capital of Warsaw. September 1st, 1939. The international response to this, tick, 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 clock starts ticking. You would think war would be immediate. It's not. Neville Chamberlain gives one last attempt at a settled agreement out of this. On the 3rd of September of 1939, Neville Chamberlain and the British government will send an ultimatum to Germany. Get out of Poland now, or it will be war. Germany ignores the ultimatum, and at 11 in the morning on September 3rd, 1939, Britain declares war on Germany, and France will follow suit. All right? Questions, comments, concerns? Is this helpful? Cool. Yes?
So when did they declare war on Germany?
They ultimately declared war on Germany on the 3rd of September of 1939. But Germany started with the invasion of Poland on the 1st of September.